What it do, comic babies? I'm Bunkmaster B, and today we're talking about something I've been getting into pretty heavy recently, and that is magic cards. That's right, that thing that you remember from like 10 years ago, or longer, if you're someone who remembered when they first came out and everybody was playing it on the playground. I've been off and on throughout my life. I remember playing it on elementary school. When I got to undergrad, I had some friends that were playing it, and I kind of picked it up and played a little bit of the online arena service. And recently, I've got a group of friends that have been playing in-person Paper Commander. In fact, actually, as I'm filming this, I've got a Commander night set up tomorrow, and I'm really excited about. And it made me kind of think about the crossover of art and story, because of course that's kind of what comics is all about. It's this medium of telling a story with the accompaniment of art. And honestly, that's kind of one of the big appeals for Magic cards with me, is that throughout the course of the game, you can kind of think about it as you are making a story. Of course, there is an official Magic storyline that kind of goes through. Not talking about that. I'm talking about the story within each game. And especially in the case of Commander, you have a legendary creature that's at the helm, and as you play the game, different things happen. And maybe not surprisingly, a lot of the big artist names of the comic world, they actually do some art for Magic cards. I think I've shown before, but my guy, Daniel Warren Johnson, has done a number of different cards for it. Don't worry, I'll put him up right here. And he's not the only one. Another one that has done quite a few of them is the amazing Tyler Crook. Yeah, Tyler Crook. You know Tyler Crook. Harrow County, whole bunch of other things. Again, he's done a number of sets, including some really, really cool stuff. This is not a new thing that has just started happening. If you go way, way back to the early days of Magic the Gathering, guys like Bill Sienkiewicz, beep, guys like Glenn Fabry, among others, have all done cards. And I think there's a pretty deep intersection between comics and Magic. But one thing I think we don't see nearly as much is the intersection the other way, where we have people who are primarily known as Magic artists that come over and do some comic work. Guys like Kev Walker. He did a number of the Avengers stuff along with Jonathan Hickman for his run. He did the Marvel Zombies Battle World as part of Secret Wars that I'm a particularly big fan of. You know, he started out, and actually some of my favorite card art through the years is through him. But one of the biggest names that you're ever going to see in the Magic art world is Rebecca Gay. Rebecca Gay, throughout the history of the game, has been one of the heavy hitters. In fact, her lands are so beloved that they are actually getting a reprint in the upcoming Commander Master set that's coming out in August. I mean, she is synonymous with Magic the Gathering art. But it's not just Magic the Gathering art. It's just storytelling art, as is the case of The Last Dragon. This was a graphic novel that she did along with Jane Yolen. Yes, that Jane Yolen, the one that did all the fantasy books you read as a kid. And it was put out through Dark Horse. It's one I've never heard anybody talk about, despite the fact that this is a really cool fantasy, beautifully illustrated book. And I think more people should talk about it. And we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So Rebecca Gay and Jane Yolen's The Last Dragon. If you are a fantasy fan and you think there aren't enough Western comics in the fantasy genre, I can't recommend this book enough. I've talked about how I think sort of my favorite fantasy comic is The Highest House, or at least my favorite hidden gem. I talked about that, I think, in last year's collection tour, where I highlighted some smaller stories. I think as a story, that one is more effective, but it's with this one right here. I mean, this could just be a collection of pictures with no actual narrative, and it would still be amazing from that Rebecca Gay artwork. As I mentioned, she is probably most known for her beautiful lands. For those of you that don't play Magic the Gathering, lands are one of the building blocks of the game, and they depict typically 5 different types of landscapes: forests, swamps, plains, islands, and mountains. And no surprise, when we get her painting the backgrounds here that show kind of landscapes, it is absolutely beautiful. These first few pages kind of set up the legend of when dragons were there. As you can probably guess from the name of it, there aren't dragons now. Again, we get this beautiful landscape right here. You get the sky right there by itself. The sky and the clouds. Like, forget everything else. I just want to look at those clouds all day long. So, no spoilers here, but the story's called The Last Dragon. Guess what? There weren't dragons. One hatches. There's a last dragon. And this is not your kind of friendly dragon. This is not Puff. This is your more sort of classical dragons, sort of evil primal forces, not necessarily evil, but just a primal force, a force of power and hunger, and that's what we get here. So we get, it's a small dragon that gets larger. We get a hapless town. I know I'm going to say this a whole bunch, but I mean, just look at this. Nobody uses the mixed mediums like Rebecca Gay does. You've got what I assume are some gouaches there. You get some pages that have colored pencils added in. I'm such a sucker for colored pencils. We get the setting up of this particular dragon and how it's the last of its kind. We meet the family that we're going to be following here. Small family in the small town countryside. Very classic fantasy trope setting up. The father is the healer. There are 3 daughters. Tansy is our main character right here. All the sisters are named after different herbs. And she is the sort of backup healer underneath her father. And so she learns all about herbs and healing and lots of things like that. Her sisters are concerned with other things, and we get this little scene where Tansy finds Dragon's Bane, which burns her hand and has some strange portents, since Dragon's Bane usually can't exist, at least according to the books, if there's not a dragon. But that can't be, because dragons are all gone. And then, look at that wolf. Look at that wolf just looking at us right there. Amazing. Got some rabbits there. I could look at Rebecca Gay art all day. So, her father is going off on his own mission. We see the dragon. We see this wolf take a deer. And we get to see this beautiful 2-page spread of the dragon right there. And he doesn't, her pa doesn't come home that night. They go out the next day. Tansy here finds his bag of herbs, and they can't find a body. They don't know what's happening here. We get to see a funeral scene where we see the perspectives of the different people. The sisters are kind of wondering how are they going to provide for their family. We get some town gossips about what it was that did it. We get some suitors thinking about, taking advantage and marrying off the daughters. We get someone who's wondering if he can take advantage of the situation and buy the herb garden for cheap now that he's not there. Everyone sort of has their own ideas. And this is one of the things that I wanted to point out is, we get some of these sort of far away. We get these kind of images where I'm not going to say that there's not a detail, but the coloring is pretty flat, where you can see the images there, and we kind of have, one tone for most of it, and then we get a little bit of lightning there at the end. There are other times where really Rebecca Guay wants to make an impact. And so, like for this one right here, we can see the coloring change here. We see the multiple strands of Tansy's hair. We see the red of her cheeks. We see the shading. I think it's really well done. Just how she uses different coloring techniques, even within different panels on the same page. It's never going to look exactly alike, and I really think that that's effective, and we don't see that kind of thing enough. So then the townspeople start, losing different things here. 2 weeks later after that, and no one, again, there aren't dragons. Nobody knows. There's little whispers of things, but a great gelding was stolen. 2 lambs from the flock were stolen. People start blaming each other. Oh, you always wanted it. I didn't do it. And then more and more things start getting taken, and people start wondering what it could be that's done it. And Tansy, she's got an inkling, because she remembers the Dragon's Bane and her conversation with her dad, but she's not sure, because again, the books are not exactly clear on what that is, and even her father told her, don't be silly, there are no dragons, that can't mean anything. But she's starting to wonder. Get that dragon right there. And eventually this fisherman goes down, and he spies the dragon take a bowl. And at that point, everybody in the town believes that the dragons are back. And it kind of comes down to, how does the town deal with this dragon? They find a book that the old recluse has that talks about the feeding of dragons. And it tells them that after eating a bowl, the dragon will sleep and not need to feed for another 2 weeks after that. And it kind of sets up that, what do we do? We've got 2 weeks that we need to formulate a plan. How do we deal with this dragon? And that's where things go from there. Alright, so from this point on in the video, this is going to be the quote-unquote spoiler section. If you care about having The Last Dragon by Jane Yolen and Rebecca Guay spoiled for you, stop here. But also, if you haven't got the sense beforehand, this is definitely more of a book where the art is kind of taking the focus. I wouldn't say that this is a book that you necessarily need to avoid spoilers for. It very much has the idea of kind of like a children's storybook. It's a tale more than anything. But always want to be mindful of spoilers. If you don't want any of this spoiled, everything I've talked about so far is kind of a premise of the book more than anything. The rest of that we're going to talk about is kind of plot. So if you don't want that, go ahead and skip to the end. Fair warning. So, with that, we know Dragon's going to be waking up in 2 weeks. What does the town do? We need a Dragon Slayer. And what the town does is they send a team of 3 children. They're thinking being both that they wouldn't be needed for sort of the town's efforts to fortify itself, and then also it's done sort of out of love, with the idea being if the dragon came early, at that point they wouldn't, they want to save the children. So they send them out to go ahead and find a hero. And the first one they find, I kind of love this line right here. They find this guy at a tavern. Of course I'm a hero. I can outdrink any man here, under or over the table. And the kid responds, so can my father, and he's no hero. And so they're going from, these towns, and they're finding people that they think are going to be the heroes, and for one reason or another, they don't find them. One of the things I was a little disappointed with, they find this sort of giantess of a farmhand. She's carrying these 2 goats, but and they ask, she's up for it, but unfortunately her father the farmer, alone with 3 boys on the road, not if you want a wedding, girl. And so they kind of get her dragged away, but I love this right here. You know, as the guy's getting pulled away, he's got this face right here. Too bad. Boy likes himself some big women. Hey, I get it. I get it, man. But anyway, they continue to go onward until they find Lokad, who's very much sort of your classic Thor type. You know, he's lean, muscled, long flowing golden hair, and they keep saying he looks like a hero's. Did you see those muscles? Even bigger than the farm girl. So why is he here in this tosspot inn? And surprise, surprise, just because this guy looks like a hero doesn't actually mean he's a hero. But he finds out that they are willing to pay, and so here's another one. He's showing his demonstrations of being a hero. Feel that arm, like iron. And he does this simple coin trick. Wow, how'd you do that? Why would you do that? So they keep buying him ale, throughout the night. They keep hearing these stories that he's embellishing, and he's talking about all of these things. And in the morning, he sneaks away because he's no hero. He knows he's not, and he gets out of there. But they run after him. He's trying to make his escape, and they say, there's gold in it if you do this. And then suddenly, oh, he's a hero again. He's making the heroic pose. So they bring him back to the town. He ends up staying with the original family that we see. And not surprisingly, first off, the dragon wakes up a little bit early. The bell wakes him up that he's causing to fortify the town's efforts. He takes another person away. So there's this real sense of urgency that's going on. And they return with the hero. And again, he looks like a hero, so the town's all behind him. But the sisters, especially Rosemary, and especially Tansy, realize that this man is not going to be the man to take out the dragon from them. And when he's eating dinner with them, this is where we start to get to see the man. And by the way, I think I've neglected. His name is Lokad, or Losad, if you think, or if you like that a little bit more. But it's the first time where they actually ask him about him and not just his exploits. And there's a point where they ask him, what did you like to do back before you were being a hero? And it's the first part where we get to see sort of behind the veil of braggadocio. And he tells us, as a boy, I like to fly kites, I suppose. And that's, the rest of the sisters are like, what? No hero likes to fly kites. That won't do it all. In the morning, he tells them after sleeping in past noon that, he's not going to come up with a plan right then. But if they come back in a day, no better 2 days, he'll have a plan. And, they kind of point out that they don't have 2 days. He uses that opportunity to try and sneak out the back. But Tansy approaches him, and again, approaches him as a person and says, listen, I understand that you're not a hero. I'm not a hero either. But this is happening. This is real. And it kind of gets through to him. And they also take the approach, they suddenly start to think about the problem a little bit more than just sort of what they had been doing. Before, the problem of slaying the dragon was a problem of brawn and might. What hero are we going to find that's going to be mighty enough to take up sword against the dragon? Whereas they start having some ideas and talking about real things. And they get this idea of a kite. And this kind of reminds me of A Bug's Life a little bit, where they get going here. And Lokad finally starts to show his resolve as a hero, starts to show the qualities that made people believe in him in the first point. And he gets the town folk together to start constructing this big kite that's going to look like a dragon. And the dragon in his mouth, in this basket right here, is going to carry the dragon's bane that Tansy found at the very beginning, which is, now before there was these contradictory results. She was talking with her father about, what does it mean? Does it mean there are dragons? Does it mean there aren't dragons? Finally, they realize that this is how they will defeat the dragon. They go and they launch the kite. The kite attracts the dragon, but of course, because it's a storybook, the first plan never works. The basket falls. They go to collect the dragon's bane, and it's at this point that Lokad shows that he has to be this hero. And oh, it's a little early before. Basket falls. The kite idea has failed, but it's attracted the dragon to them. So, using the rope that the kite was tethered to, Lokad goes after it and is able to throw the dragon's bane into the dragon's mouth. We get this beautiful picture of the dragon self-immolating from within. It falls down into the lake. Lokad unfortunately revealed before that he can't swim. Sorry, Lancot. I've been calling him the wrong name this whole time. Tansy cries, very, very sad. And surprise, surprise, he is actually fine. And the dragon's fire has burned his hair, but surprisingly, he still looks great. Who knew? He does that kind of Thor thing he does in Ragnarok, where he goes from the long hair to still looking great with short hair. And from then on, we find out that that Tansy and Lokad live a life together. Lokad becomes the local inn owner and village storyteller, and kind of plays to his strengths instead of being a hero. You know, he was always good with people, and that's what he goes for. And he starts a yearly festival where they fly kites in remembrance of it. The end. So that was it. That was The Last Dragon by Rebecca Guay and Jane Yolen. I don't know about you, but there could be literally no story in that book whatsoever, and I would still love it simply for being an art book. Just the mixed medium that she uses there, it's beautiful. There's nothing that looks like her artwork in comics. Right now, Rebecca Guay is doing gallery pieces. She's in the fine art world, so probably going to be a while before we see any other graphic novels coming out that are going to bear her work. But hey, if she ever wants to come back, I know I'm there. But I want to know about you guys. So, I want to hear about art. First off, do you have any background with Magic the Gathering? If so, who's your favorite artist? And on top of that, how do you feel that art really kind of exists within comics? Are you someone that it backs up the story, it's there to kind of explain it? Is it on equal footing with the writing? Is it something that you can just read on its own? Are you one of those people that can forgive bad writing, but not bad art, or vice versa? I want to hear about it, because I think there is nothing wrong with a comic as an art book if the art can stand alone on it. Not that this is the case, but it's just, it could be. So, let me know down below. But with that, I've been Bunkmaster B. You all have been amazing. Catch you next time.